Welcome to the second session of the ELT Training Sessions 2025, organized by SBS Librería Internacional in partnership with Ricardo Palma University and Idiomas Ricardo Palma, its Language Center. My name is Mónica Melendez, and I will be your host for today's event. For those joining us for the first time, allow me to briefly introduce the ELT Training Sessions. These professional development workshops are designed for English teachers seeking to enrich and enhance their teaching practice. Our goal is to explore a wide range of topics related to methodology, current trends in language teaching, and other key areas to help improve the quality of English instruction in our country. We would like to invite you at this point to learn more about SBS Librería Internacional with the following video. Thank you to the team backstage.
Durante 28 años, SBS, Librería Internacional, ha sido el pilar de la educación y el aprendizaje de idiomas extranjeros en el Perú. Nuestra destacada trayectoria y firme compromiso nos han permitido establecer alianzas con editoriales de renombre mundial, como Oxford University Press, Pearson, Cambridge, National Geographic Learning, Penguin Random House, Planeta, entre otras. Además de contar con nuestro propio sello, SBS Editorial, estas colaboraciones nos capacitan para ofrecer una selección sin igual de títulos, que abarcan desde textos académicos especializados hasta las últimas novedades literarias. Con 15 librerías en las principales ciudades del país y una plataforma en línea que extiende nuestro alcance a nivel nacional e internacional, no solo proporcionamos contenidos, sino que también brindamos una experiencia personalizada en cada compra. Nuestra oferta incluye una amplia variedad de recursos en enseñanza de idiomas, ciencias sociales, literatura, infantil, negocios, diseñados para estudiantes, docentes y apasionados del conocimiento. Con el programa SBS Más Educación, nos especializamos en la capacitación de docentes de idiomas. Colaboramos con figuras reconocidas en la enseñanza de idiomas para ofrecer formación avanzada en metodologías pedagógicas. Nuestro enfoque no solo mejora la enseñanza de los idiomas, sino que también abre puertas a un mundo de oportunidades. Capacitamos a educadores para que a su vez puedan preparar a sus alumnos para el futuro. Contamos con una variedad de programas, como ELT Training Sessions y el TDC Teaching Development Conference, que abarcan tanto formaciones presenciales como capacitaciones virtuales. En SBS Librería Internacional creemos firmemente que la educación y la cultura son fundamentales para una sociedad próspera. Nos esforzamos por impulsar un cambio positivo y construir un futuro lleno de posibilidades para el Perú y el mundo.
Thank you, Tim. Ricardo Palma University and SBS Librería Internacional are strategic partners and have worked together in making these sessions possible. Ricardo Palma University is a leading institution in higher education. Throughout our 55-year history, we have learned to adapt to a rapidly changing world. We are a multidisciplinary university that promotes humanism and professional success. With our specialization program for teachers of English, we've worked very hard to prepare highly qualified teachers who contribute to the educational transformation so well needed in our country. Ricardo Palma University, we educate human beings for a culture of peace. To learn more about Idiomas Ricardo Palma and its contribution to teacher training, we would like to invite you at this point to watch the following video. Thank you one more time, SBS team at the backstage.
¿Eres profesor de inglés y buscas que tus estudiantes dominen el idioma? El programa de especialización en enseñanza del idioma inglés de la Universidad Ricardo Palma, PEEI, es para ti. Está dirigido a profesores que buscan mejorar sus perspectivas laborales y liderar en la enseñanza de inglés. El contenido del programa ha sido especialmente diseñado para que domines los procesos de enseñanza-aprendizaje de inglés en la era digital. Como estudiante del PEEI, tienes acceso a conferencias a cargo de expositores internacionales del más alto nivel. Recibes el material y plataforma digital de forma gratuita. Lo último en la enseñanza del inglés en el programa más completo del mercado. Gracias a su doble certificación, accedes al examen internacional TOEFL ITP de manera gratuita. Cuentas además con una biblioteca exclusiva y préstamo de libros. El programa te permitirá trabajar con niños, jóvenes y adultos. Vive una experiencia única. Las inscripciones ya están abiertas. Únete al PEEI y conviértete en líder en esta fascinante área de la educación.
Thank you for the video. Now, I would like to make an important announcement. At the end of today's session, a QR code will appear with a link to register your attendance. Please fill out the form in order to receive your certificate of participation. Once you scan the QR code, make sure you complete the form. Certificates as well as the material for today's session will be sent by mail within 10 business days. It is my pleasure now to introduce you to Mr. Simón Schwarzemberg. Simón graduated from the English teaching program for primary and secondary education at Andrés Bello University in Chile. He furthered his studies abroad by completing an academic English course at Brigham Young University in Utah, USA. In 2019, he moved to Peru to pursue the Specialization Program for Teachers of English at Ricardo Palma University. He holds a master's degree in higher education from Ricardo Palma University and several international certifications such as the CAE, the TOEFL ITP, the MET, and the TKT, and some others. He is currently working as academic support at Idiomas Ricardo Palma and as a teacher trainer for the Specialization Program for Teachers of English. He is in charge of the module about digital literacy named English Teaching and Learning in the Digital Era, as well as in charge of the conversation workshop at the same program. So without further ado, I would like to give Mr. Schwarzemberg a very warm welcome. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Monica. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Thank you, everyone, thank you so much for joining in today. Before we start, I just want to say that feel free to use the chat box to leave your comments and share some of the experiences you have. I will ask for your participation during this conference. And well, what can I say? I am stoked to be here today, especially because we'll talk about this highly important topic, which is digital competence for educators. And I've been passionate about this topic for a while now. So it's great to have the opportunity to speak about it today. Now, the aims of today's session are to implement digital tools effectively and purposefully in English language teaching, or ELT. And we're going to explore some frameworks to enhance pedagogical practices. So maybe we can begin with this question. On a scale of 1 to 5, how digitally competent do you feel as an educator? I'll be reading the comments. There's a slight delay in the transmission. However, I will give you some time to provide your ideas. And in the meantime, you can just picture this in your mind, this real life scenario. Just imagine that you're suddenly asked to teach online tomorrow. What's your biggest challenge? Would it be the technology, the student engagement, or something else, something different? Because I am sure that many of you have faced similar challenges. Some teachers have thrived in this new modality, and virtual modalities or hybrid, while others have struggled to adapt. So what's been your experience so far? I'm looking at the chat right now. Everyone's saying good evening. Very good. So I'm pretty sure you all have some great ideas about it. And look, Corey says 3. So she feels, pretty competent, I would say. 3 is a good number. In between. I'll be reading the following comments, but I want to talk about this survey because this was taken from a survey that we are conducting. Well, the Specialization Program is conducting along with the Language Center. They're doing a research, and we have already applied the survey to over 70% of the English teachers at the university. And okay, 3.5, 3, okay, very good. And well, we have applied this survey to over 70% of the English teachers at the university, and there are some interesting findings. So one of the questions in the survey was, do you use digital tools when teaching your lesson? So 93.5% of the teachers said yes, they do, which is a pretty big number. Do you use digital tools when teaching your lesson? Now, the second question that I'm going to show here is, have you observed positive changes in your students' performance due to the incorporation of digital tools? And 80.6% of the teachers said yes, right? And only 16.1% said partially. So they have observed some positive changes in the students' performance, which is something good. Have you seen positive changes because you use digital technologies? And then the last question from the survey was, what do you consider to be your level of competence with digital tools? And we have 5 levels, right? From 1 being basic, 2 being pre-intermediate, 3 intermediate, 4 upper intermediate, and then 5 advanced. So what do you consider to be your level of digital competence? And I believe it's always a good idea to discuss important topics. I believe this is one, and sometimes even professional development, because for the professional development, right? You're here because you want to grow professionally. You want to learn something new, something different. So yes, this is going to end up being a hopefully an article in the future. So if you want to participate in this research, you can scan this QR code. This is the survey for the digital competence for ELT. You don't have to answer right now. I would actually advise you to take the survey after we finish the conference. You will have a deeper understanding of what digital competence is. Now you can pause the video and scan it, or you can go back to the video because the recording is going to stay in the SBS YouTube channel. So you can go back as many times as you want. Now, after the survey, some questions arose. For instance, is a teacher who knows how to use a computer digitally competent? And what does it really mean to be a teacher with digital competence? So we might think that simply knowing how to use a laptop or a computer, makes you instantly competent. But as we dive deeper into the concept of it, it becomes clear that digital competence is much more than that. So maybe we can define it. Here. The confident, critical, and creative use of ICT to achieve goals related to work, employability, learning, leisure, inclusion, and/or participation in society. That was defined by the European Commission in 2017. And that brings to mind the early days of teaching. Back then, the most reliable tool was a piece of chalk and a blackboard. Whiteboards and markers appeared after that. And that was technology, just not digital technology, right? So it's good to make the differentiation here. We have technology and then digital technology. So fast forward to now, most schools, and I say most because I know that it's not everywhere. It doesn't happen all the time. Most schools have computers or laptops, internet access, etc. But digital competence isn't just about having them or using them. It's about using them strategically, creatively, confidently, and ethically, right, to enhance the learning outcomes. So because we mentioned some of these fresh terminology or what happened in the past, maybe we can share if you have experiences, you can leave comments on the chat. We'll be happy to read them and share some of your experiences as educators. Is digital competence a new concept? What do you guys think? Is it new? It's an old concept. Over here, we have a timeline of technology and digital technology. And we know that the introduction to the internet is not something new. I mean, for the past 20 years, educators have talked about technology as a tool that could be used in the classroom. So maybe we can break down this timeline very briefly because, we don't have a lot of time, but maybe we can separate it in 3 different eras. The first one is going to be our teacher-centered era, right? Maybe we can grab 1800s until the 1960s. Over there, we have tools like the graphite pencil, the printing press, the typewriter, which were all early forms of technology, not digital, just technology. And because technology is a tool that humans created to solve a problem, right? When we have a problem, how can we solve it? They found a solution. And these tools still required some competence, but in different forms, right? Like literacy, mechanics, organization, tools that were strictly necessary for that. Now they are just we take it for granted. And then we have maybe we can separate the other era from the 1970s until the 2000, which was the birth of the digital tools. Over there, we have the introduction of calculators, computers, learning management systems, LMS. So there was a shift. Teachers and students needed to adapt these new ways. They were learning. They were exploring. They were browsing. They were amazed by this new things, right? Shiny things. So it was crucial. It was a crucial part of today's digital competence. People born in the 80s and the 90s probably explore that even more. And then our last era, we're gonna call it the student-centered era, because there was a digital transformation. Over there, the teacher is now a facilitator, and we worked with, e-learning, B-learning, U-learning, M-learning. We have so many learnings, right? Even flipped learning. And we have things like MOOCs, right? These massive online open courses, collaborative platforms. We have the emails, we have smartphones, and digital competence has become essential. So for English teachers, digital competence today means more than just using a smartphone or assigning online homework to get to the smartphone, but we've had to go through all of that. You see, it's been a great journey, and a very long journey as well. So it's about guiding students in using those digital tools to develop all 4 language skills, collaborate globally, and become autonomous learners in a digital world, right? So that's why we need to be versatile. Let's go here. Let's jump into the available frameworks. Now that we have the backstory of what digital competence is and what is not, and how we as teachers understand it, let's take a look at some of the frameworks that are available and have been developed to tackle this important topic, which is digital competence. So these frameworks, right? We started with one in 2008. So it's not a new concept, maybe a more popular concept today, but it's not new. And these frameworks don't just define digital competence, but they give us guidance. They give us structure. They created a path forward as we continue to grow in our professional practice. And ever since the digital revolution, several frameworks have been updated and created to help educators navigate this shift. So I would say that these are not all the available frameworks. Of course, there are more. The UNESCO has lots of them. And even for certain continents, right, as well, they separate it, they divide it. They have lots of publications and articles and frameworks. So we're not going to cover everything today, but I am going to give you a quick overview, and you'll notice that most of these frameworks in relation to digital competence are share very similar structures. The areas they focus on are virtually the same, and in many cases, the content is interchangeable, which is good, right? They work together. And it's not that one framework replaces or cancels out the other, but it's more like each one builds on the previous one. They add new information, new insights, fresh terminology, or updated digital practices. It's like the Common European Framework for Reference, right? It was published in the 2000s, and then they posted a new version with fresh terminology. So these frameworks aim to standardize the use of digital technology in education, and in doing that, of course, we're going to help teachers build the digital skills that they need. So Over here, we have the term ICT. I think we haven't mentioned it yet. So is the term Information and Communications Technology outdated? So ICT in Spanish is the very popular TIC, las TIC, right? Which is always singular in Spanish and not plural. But what do you guys think? I want to know your opinion. Do you consider that it's outdated? Maybe you can leave the comments on the chat. I'm reading. Because I have my own personal informed opinion. I do. Excellent. So, especially because I've been researching for my master's thesis, and while it's still used in many official documents and frameworks, today we often see more specific or updated terms, like digital literacy, for example. We also have AI literacy, which is everywhere. We have digital tools. Personally, I like digital tools. And EdTech, which is very, very popular today as well. So these newer terms tend to reflect more current trends and tools, and they sometimes feel more relevant to what we're actually doing in classrooms today. So while ICT isn't wrong or obsolete, it's kind of been absorbed into a broader and more modern vocabulary, let's call it. And this is important because as teachers, we want to stay up to date with, current trends. We want to know what's out there, what tools are being used. Sometimes we talk to our colleagues, and I talk to my colleagues and ask what platforms they're using, what websites they're using. Sometimes they post it, they send me articles. So, let's make the most of them. There are groups for English teachers where they share these news. They share conferences, articles, books, handouts, new apps, new websites, even job ads. And of course, if we don't take time to study, or attend conferences or stay active professionally, we might miss out. So you don't want to miss out this opportunity. So this is also a chance to pause and reflect. Am I keeping up? Am I evolving with the time? And let's be honest, in our current roles, we want to come across as informed and an up-to-date educator. I want to be an up-to-date educator, right? Because that's part of how we build our credibility. So very, very good. Let's continue here. What digital tools do you usually use in your lessons? I would love to know. I'm dying to know, actually. So maybe you can use the chat box and select or tell me some of the digital tools that you use in your lesson. So you can go ahead and drop your answers in the chat. I'll give you a moment to share your ideas. You can share some of the digital tools that you use in your online sessions and in your offline sessions. So, and I want to take a moment to make the distinction here, because the way we use digital tools in face-to-face sessions is very different from how we use it in virtual environments. Each context brings its own challenges, of course, but they also bring their own tools, the teacher roles, and here we have some key ideas, because using technology doesn't automatically make a class better. It has to be used with purpose and an intention. So in offline or in-person classes, the focus should be on interaction, movement, which is something that we can't do in our virtual lessons, right? We can't ask students to stand up. I mean, we could, but we never know. And collaboration. So things that are harder to do through a screen, right? Maybe we need to take advantage of that. And not everything needs a digital tool. Sometimes putting the phone aside helps students be more present, which is something we want. We want their attention. And there's so many distractions. I mean, my phone has, it's ringing, and, these companies are calling me every day, every hour. I receive notifications all the time. So sometimes when we leave our phones aside, we can be more present and engaged. We're in the moment. And well, part of my job is observe classes. And I remember once I observed a class. It was an online class where the teacher used Kahoot. And well, I love Kahoot. I think you like Kahoot too. Do you like Kahoot? Well, personally, I like it. But then I realized that this teacher used Kahoot every single class. So now this element of surprise was not there. I didn't see the students as motivated in using Kahoot. So sometimes we need to consider and decide critically, is this the right moment to use Kahoot? Maybe you can use something different. And then I went to the face-to-face class, and the teacher used Kahoot again. So we need to be a bit more. We need to be a little bit more informed about when and how and why we can use certain digital tools, right? We are actually going to talk about this topic a bit more in our upcoming conference, where we'll talk about, or we'll go deeper into this topic, specifically focusing in online and offline use of digital tools. So I hope I see you there. Now, let's take a look at this periodic table. Do you recognize any apps, any platforms? I see Cecilia said WordWall. Very good. Yes, WordWall is there, over here. Yes, in evaluation and gamification. Excellent. Do you guys recognize any other platforms? Kahoot. Yes, exactly. Okay, Karina said yes, Kahoot for online lessons. Excellent. I agree. I agree. I try not to use the phone in the class because students get distracted. You know your students better than anyone. So yes. Live worksheets. Excellent, Rosa. Very good. Well, I found this periodic table. This is by Apps para Profes, right? It's over there if you want to look it up. There's another one on AI, which I also think it's very, very interesting. People recognize Canva, Clau and Corey. Excellent. Canva, yes, Canva's there. Very good over here. Well, I can point, but it's there. Very good. Any other that you guys recognize? Digital tools like Kahoot and Canva. Excellent. Yes. Now, I like this table because it's divided into some areas, right? We have the content creation area, we have the communication and community area, evaluation and gamification, programming, organize ideas and boards, educational content, content management, and tools and resources. So I feel like it's pretty complete. However, this is not exactly updated. For example, you can see Flipgrid at the bottom, one of the first. Flipgrid doesn't exist anymore, right? I tried to use it the other day and I realized that it wasn't working anymore. So I used a different app, right? Or a different website, which was called Screencastify, right? Or you see Jamboard there. Jamboard doesn't exist anymore, right? So with my students, we used something different. So I think this is from like 2 years ago. And this is because digital tools are usually changing, are always changing, updating, and they want to attract your attention. For example, on Quizlet or Quizzes, you can now teach a class there. You can you can create your presentation there and do everything there, right? So they are trying to find ways to keep you there, right? Using the app. Look, I have everything. Use me, right? So yes. Okay. Very good. Excellent. People are giving me their comments. So they recognize Padlet. Very good. Padlet. Um, quiz. Yes. Uh-huh. Very good. Duolingo's there. Yes, that's right. Perfect. So let's move on. And let's go back for a moment to February 2020. I know, just before the lockdown. And what was the use of digital tools like back then? Do you remember? How did you use these digital tools? Because in many cases, digital tools were used occasionally, right? So I have a few questions over here that I'm going to share. So, what was the use of digital tools like before the pandemic? Was there any training for teachers regarding digital tools? So, the teachers here that are watching the conference, did you ever receive training either on your own or by your institution on the use of digital tools before the lockdown? And did teachers use digital tools? If so, for what purpose? So maybe you can give me some ideas and we can work with that. In the meantime, I remember that in many cases, digital tools were used occasionally, maybe for showing a video or projecting a presentation, giving some online homework, using, because I'm doing a listening activity. But let's be honest, in many schools, in many institutions, the use of technology wasn't really systematic or strategic. It was more like an add-on, not fully integrated, into the learning process. It was there, but sometimes. Now, think about this. Was there any training? Because for most of us, or at least in my case, no, right? Or it was very limited. If we use technology, it was usually self-taught or just the basics, right? Personally, I was lucky because right before the pandemic, I was studying the specialization program for English language teaching, right? You can see the picture there. That's the program. And I was just studying that right before the pandemic. And then the pandemic started, lockdown started. And we have this module on, English teaching, and learning in a digital era. So, I learned so much. It gave me a broader perspective of digital tools and teaching in general. And I was talking to my colleagues because some of them were working at schools, language centers, universities, etc., and they were not ready to teach online. They didn't know a lot of these apps or platforms that we know today. And so we were talking about Padlet, I remember, and it was huge. I don't use it a lot anymore, but at the time, that was cutting edge, right? Kahoot, quizzes. So that was something that was it kind of started a conversation, a discussion, and people realized that, wow, I need to do something for my online lessons, right? Otherwise, I'm going to stay behind. Okay, I have a comment here. Ada says, digital tools were rarely used. There wasn't any training those days. Very good. Thank you very much, Ada. And so over here, I remember that maybe tools were for presenting content, giving students something extra to watch, perhaps some online grammar exercises. It wasn't really about digital pedagogy. We weren't talking much about interaction or collaboration or feedback using those tools, right? Of course, everything changed after that, but we'll get there in a moment. So now, fast forward, August 2022, we're going back to face-to-face classes. Most of us were returning to face-to-face classes, or at least that's when the university decided to go face-to-face. You can see their faces. That was an English class at Idiomas Ricardo Palma, which is the Language Center of Ricardo Palma University. And most of us were returning to face-to-face classes, right? After a long period of remote teaching. What did we find? What happened? How did we feel? First of all, and of course, there was a sense of emergency, right? Still lingering there. We were still kind of scared. We were still using our masks. Of course, it was mandatory. Some people didn't want to go face to face. We were still a little bit scared. Many of the tools and strategies that we had adopted during lockdown were never meant to be permanent, and we were improvising. So we were trying things out. We were learning on the go. What will happen next, right? Now we have to take my class that I prepared for my online class to my face-to-face class. Is it going to work? What can I do differently, right? Because we needed to adapt our material, etc. Now, innovation. Some teachers were very creative, right? They explored new tools on their own. They used videos. They created videos. I have one very good friend, and she showed me a video because she teaches primary. And she showed me a video where she's wearing a hat, just like Mario, this game. And it was really good. It was really creative. And up until this point, I don't know how she did it. So some teachers were very creative. And the reality here is that they used these interactive platforms, even social media, to stay connected with the students. But also it revealed some cracks, some gaps, some things that were missing. And some schools lacked infrastructure. That's what we realized going back to our face-to-face classes. Others didn't have reliable internet connection or devices like laptops or computers. Many teachers still hadn't received any formal training in how to use technology pedagogically, not just technically, right? And so by 2022, that was clear. The challenge was clear. Now that we're back in the classroom, how do we combine the lessons we learned, right? Everything we learned during lockdown, all these 2 years, to now, how can we combine it? Because we need to negotiate, right? So we had to, adjust a little. We need to adapt. We need to tweak a few things, right, to make it work. Yes. Look, we have an experience here. Dilcia Delgado says, "I Will Survive" was a popular one. It was so funny to see them dancing and singing and join all of them. Teachers were singing, right? Whatever we could to make students participate and make them feel motivated. We took a lot of risks, Mercedes. Yes, it was like entering to a new world. Exactly. Yes, it was a new world. It was a different world, something that we hadn't experienced before. So if you have any other ideas, go ahead, go to the chat and just write it there. There's a very interesting article or publication. This is a publication that examines the global shift to educational technology during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's called An EdTech Tragedy. The QR code is there in case you want to read it. It's really, really interesting because it highlights how millions of students became fully dependent on tech-based learning because of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? It's whether through internet or TV or radio. And what happened was that the transition to EdTech happened too fast and without precedent, right? That was the first time that's happened. And we were trying to keep education going, right? We needed to continue. We need to act now. But in doing so, it often widened existing gaps because, most teachers all over the world, I'm not talking just here in Peru, but there were gaps, right? We didn't expect that. So in this publication, they mentioned that just because learning can happen online doesn't mean that it will happen well or correctly or successfully. I think it's better. So it's interesting. It's a good read in case you have for your free time. Instead of watching Netflix, you can just read about this. Even though it's been a few years already. Now, because we are talking about this, we need a framework. So what is the purpose of a digital competence framework? With so many tools and so many platforms and approaches out there, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, right? And don't get me wrong, I spent hours finding the right tool for my class. And a framework offers structure. It offers clarity. It's like a map for teachers to, navigate the digital world. And a good framework can clearly define what digital competence looks like in education. We can guide teachers, and push them maybe to professional development. We're not just learning random tools, but actually growing in a meaningful and strategic way. Right now, you're going to make this tool yours and you're going to master it. And now you are, I don't know, you are going to be the expert using this tool. And this serves as a basis for evaluating and offering feedback on teachers' digital competencies. Have you ever seen a colleague's class? Every time I see a class, I learn something new, or I see something different that I don't do. Of course, we all have our styles of teaching, right? But every time we go to a different class, we see something that, wow, I don't do that in my class, right? So I think it's a good practice to do that. And of course, using a purpose for, having a framework that will help us as a purpose to kind of enhance this digital competence and make it stronger, right? Now, here's the framework that we're going to take a look at. This is called Digital Competence of Educators. This is by the European Commission, and it was created to support educators in using digital technologies effectively. It defines 6 areas. You can see the areas there. And each area has a few competencies there. So in total, there are 22 competencies that cover from everything from using digital tools to design activities, to support students, empower them, everything, right? So this helps educators reflect. You can grow and improve their digital skills in a very structured way, no matter what level they're starting from. So let's begin. And we are going to take a look at a video. So I think the video is from 2021. It covers a few aspects that I've mentioned before. So let's watch it.
Digital transformation is happening all around us, changing many aspects of daily life, from entertainment and retail to how we work, learn, and communicate. Teaching is also impacted by this digital change. Education plays a key role preparing learners for the challenges of an increasingly digital world. Educators through the education and training system need to be confident and competent in using digital technologies in their profession. Many national and international projects define digital skills for educators and support teachers to acquire them. The European Commission has worked with education authorities, educators, and other experts to develop a shared definition of educators' digital skills. The European Framework for the Digital Competence of Educators, also known as DigCompEdu, is used widely in Europe to discuss educators' digital competences, to help them embed technology in teaching practice and facilitate reflection on their digital competence. DigCompEdu maps educators' key digital competences under 3 pillars. The first describes how teachers use technology in their work to collaborate with colleagues, parents, and others, and to support their professional development. The second pillar describes educators' digital competence related to pedagogy. It is about using digital technologies and resources efficiently and effectively to support teaching, learning, and assessment. The third pillar focuses on helping learners develop their digital competences so that they can use technology in confident, critical, and creative ways. DigCompEdu is for educators in all levels of education, from early childhood to higher education, adult learning, general and vocational education, as well as non-formal learning contexts. It helps inform education policy, supports regional and national initiatives on digital competences, and can be a guide for governments, organizations, and training providers to create digital competence programs for educators. The framework includes a progression path describing 6 stages of technology use, from awareness and exploration to leadership and innovation, guiding educators on how to further develop their skills. Using the framework, the European Commission, with experts from across Europe, is building a free online tool which will enable educators to reflect on their digital skills, help them identify their strengths, and where they can improve further. Join us and find out more about teaching and learning in the digital age.
Excellent. So that was basically an overview of this framework. These are the 6 areas, and over here we have the 22 competencies. We are not going to go one by one because it's so much. It's a whole book. But over here, as they mentioned, it's under 3 pillars, right? The educator's professional competences, the educator's pedagogic competences, and the learner's competences. So maybe we can take a look at that, because it is divided, or this framework defines 6 proficiency levels, right? And this is aligned with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. They changed the names, right? A1 is a newcomer, right? And well, they basically are willing to start using these digital tools, and they're curious, right? They want to try something new. For A2 level, they are the explorers. So they start making meaningful use of these digital technologies, and they experiment, right, with variation. For B1, right, we have the integrators. So these are educators that incorporate digital strategies in a purposeful and diversified manner. Then we have the B2, the experts. And they reflect on and share their digital practices, and they use them effectively as well, right? So it works. After that, we have leaders, right? The C1, they're the leaders. These are educators that lead others by guiding them, supporting their digital competence development. And at last, we have the C2, which is the pioneer. And at this stage, they engage in critical thinking, they engage in innovation, the renewal of digital teaching practices. So each level builds on the previous one, encouraging continuous professional growth in using technology for teaching, assessment, and of course, learner empowerment. So let's begin with the first one over here. Here's the professional engagement, and this area focuses on how educators use digital tools for communication, for collaboration, and for professional development. Over here, we have those three competencies, right? I can give you some brief examples, like in organizational communication, you can use Google Classroom, for instance, or even using an email correctly, right? That you make sure that you know how to send an email, or you know how to use Google Classroom correctly and take advantage of that, of all the features. Or for reflective practice, you can use Google Docs to keep a reflective journals. How many of you have journals? I remember I used to have a journal. Sadly, I don't anymore. But I used to write some incidents that happened at school when I was working at a school, and it was interesting because I could ask my colleagues and some friends, and more experienced teachers that could give me their opinions. So it is a good idea to have a reflective journal. And for digital continuous professional development, we could have MOOCs, for example, or this type of conferences, right, where you can grow professionally. For the second area, which is digital resources, this focuses on how educators source, create, and share digital materials to, of course, to enhance teaching and learning. So, for example, if you want to select a digital resource, it is not as easy as it sounds, right? A teacher selecting educational videos from YouTube, for example, it's a great idea. Sometimes it takes time because you need to watch every single video. You need to see how long it lasts, if it's old or if it's new, if it's related to the topic. So yeah, there's so many things that goes in my mind, when selecting a video. Creating and modifying digital resources, right? A teacher can use Canva, for example. You mentioned Canva at the beginning. Well, some teachers mentioned Canva at the beginning to design visually engaging worksheets or material for the class. I think it's excellent. I love Canva. I use Canva a lot, but not for my classes. I don't create my classes there. I like to use PowerPoint presentations still. And managing, protecting, and sharing digital resources. A good example could be using Google Drive to store information and then sharing the information. But when we share information, we need to be careful with the privacy or the settings, the privacy settings, right? Because if it's something that you don't want others to edit, right, you are not going to make them editors, but you can make them viewers, or they can comment on it. So we need to be careful with that. And that's, of course, one of these competences in the area of digital resources. Okay, one of the teachers said here, it is a great tool. You can keep records of what you did, so you can change activities done, surprising your students. It is good to be unpredictable from time to time. Absolutely, I agree. It's a good thing to be unpredictable sometimes, or do new things. It's kind of motivating. Now, the third area is teaching and learning. So this area focuses on managing and orchestrating the use of digital technologies in teaching and learning. And then we have teaching, guidance, collaborative learning, and self-regulated learning. Some of the examples that came to my mind was, for example, if you're delivering a grammar lesson through an interactive presentation, you could use quizzes, for example, or Mentimeter, right? Kahoot in that sense. And for the guidance competence, you can offer feedback, for example, or clarification through messaging apps or voice notes. I remember my teachers when I was studying at the university in the USA. I remember my teachers would record themselves reviewing my essays and my papers, and they would create videos and just send me the video with all the corrections. I thought it was great. They spent a lot of time doing it, and that's very valuable for students. When they can see that you put an effort, they value it. So collaborative learning, third competence here, fostering group work and peer interaction using digital tools. They can collaborate on a Google spreadsheet, or they can collaborate on Padlet. They can collaborate in the breakout rooms if you use Zoom. So there's so many ways where how they can collaborate. And the last one here is self-regulated learning. We need to encourage students to take control of their own learning process, right? We need to make them accountable. And for that, we can provide access, videos to tutorials, self-assessment, even learning management systems or platforms where they can work outside of the class. We work with National Geographic Learning, so we use Spark, and they have lots of activities and videos and listening activities, grammar activities, so they can work, right? And they can be more autonomous. Area number 4 is assessment. And this area focuses on using digital technologies and strategies to enhance assessment. So over here, we can create, for the first competence assessment strategies, we could use digital tools to design a variety of assessment formats. You can use Google Forms, you can use Socrative, you can use any other platform or website. But you have to check that the students' understanding, which is very, very important. There are lots of apps or websites that you can use to do this. Analyzing evidence, right? We need to interpret the student performance data and see how this data collected can be incorporated or used with a digital tool, right? So we can review a quiz, for example. We can review a quiz or the quiz results on platforms like Google Forms, which give you everything right away. And you can identify common mistakes and talk with the whole class, right? When you check the exam, because it is important to check the exams so they can see the right and wrong answers. And you can check that as a group. And then feedback and planning, you can just leave comments on shared documents. You can send emails, you can record audios, videos to just give the students the revised essay or paper or composition and all that. Area number 5 is empowering learners. And this area focuses on using digital technologies to enhance inclusion, personalization, and learners' active engagement. So one way to do it for accessibility and inclusion, you have to ensure that all students can participate, regardless of their abilities or backgrounds or learning styles or multiple intelligences, right? So you can use videos with subtitles. If people are more visual and they want to read, or if they don't like to listen, we can find ways, we can negotiate that. Differentiation and personalization. We can adapt content and tools to meet diverse learning needs. So over here, you can assign different tasks or resources through Google Classroom, for example, and you can personalize it based on the student's levels or interests. If you know Google Classroom, you see that there are lots of features over there when assigning homework or submitting tests and all that. Number 3, we have actively engaging learners and promoting students' participation and ownership of learning through digital means. So we can let the students create podcasts, for example. We can let them create a video, right? Or a blog, or whatever they can use digitally to express what they've learned. Because they need to, promote, or we need to promote, participation. And if you want to make it engaging, you need to make it engagement for them. You need to do what's interesting for your students, right? Even though it might be something might be excellent for you, it's an excellent idea for you, but maybe for the students, they're not going to be as excited as you are. And the last area is facilitating learners' digital competence. This is we have five competences there, and in this area, we focus on enabling learners to creatively and responsibly use digital technologies for information communication, content creation, well-being, and problem solving. So there are lots of things that come to my mind now. You can guide the learners to fact check online sources or recognize fake news. In the first competence there, information and media literacy, we need to tell them explicitly, just like we used to do it with Wikipedia, right? We used to say, Wikipedia is not trustworthy, right? I always say it can be your start. It could be your starting point, right? But it cannot be one of your, your citation. You cannot cite it. So we need to teach students to find, to evaluate, to interpret digital content and fact check online sources. They need to recognize fake news. I've seen some of my family members send me some news, for example, and I say, oh, but this is not true, right? This was made by AI, and it's this literacy that some people are have developed it little bit more, but we can still develop it, and we need to be aware of it. For number 2, we have digital communication and collaboration. So over here, we want to guide our learners to fact check. We want to organize online discussions or on collaborative projects, for example, using platforms like Padlet or Google Docs, where they can collaborate digitally. Number 3, for digital content and creation, we can ask students to design infographics on Canva, or create short video presentations. It's important that we can, boost and promote that kind of skills, because who knows, maybe the students are going to work with that, and maybe they will never forget when they did an infographics in the English class about saving the planet. And then number 4, we have responsible use. We need to discuss online privacy, digital footprints, screen time balance in class. We need to promote this ethical, safe, and healthy use of digital tools, because we know that it can be dangerous, but it can be very beneficial as long as we know how to use it. And number 5, the last competence is digital problem solving. So we need to help students, and we need to encourage them to explore the help sections. Most of the apps, most of the websites, they have troubleshoots or They have a help section, but sometimes they get stuck on a problem. And part of the process of using a new website or a new app is we're always going to find a problem, or a difficulty more than a problem, but we can fix it, right? We can see how it works. We can see tutorials. We have lots of different things on the internet, on YouTube, now TikTok. So if we find a problem on the way, it's always good that we're prepared for it. Now, I want to make this very clear that digital tools support learning. They're not the goal itself. And we sometimes get we get so caught up in exploring the newest app, the newest platform, this latest AI tool, that we forget why we're using them in the first place. The goal is never to use technology just because, oh, I want to do something technological in my class, right? We need to have a reason. The goal is to help our students learn better, and you know them better than anyone. So to make our classes more engaging, accessible, and meaningful, you need to select the right tools, but only you know what works in your class and what doesn't work in your class. So we want to incorporate everything we know at once. Sometimes I've seen students, right? They want to do everything. They want to do a lot. But is that going to work for my students if they incorporate everything they know, or if I do everything here? Do I want to show off in my class, or do I want to teach in order for my students to learn? So we need to balance that. Now, here's the QR code to the DigComp Edu, the framework. So if you want to learn more about the framework, you can scan the QR code and it will directly send you to the website. Well, I already said that the recording is gonna stay there, so you can pause the video or you can watch the video later to go to it, or you can just Google it. It's gonna pop up there. Now, apart from that framework, there's another framework here. It's called Competency of AI for Teachers. And there's another one that's for students. And we know that AI is everywhere now. UNESCO has recently developed those two frameworks. They are from 2024. And the goal is to help both groups, teachers and students, to use AI tools critically, ethically, and effectively. So we cannot just overlook them, right? We cannot pretend AI doesn't exist and it's making our lives easier as teachers, right? For students as well, right? But we need to know how to use it, right? Because we understand the risks. Maybe students don't understand the risks yet. But there are risks, there are opportunities, there's an impact on learning. And well, these frameworks give guidance on things like responsible use, data privacy, right? You cannot be asking ChatGPT like personal questions because you know that's going to go into a database. So we need to be careful with our privacy. And of course, digital literacy in the age of AI. So it's a good read. Maybe for the next conferences, we will tackle this important topic. Now, let's talk about some of the challenges for teachers in a digital era. One, of course, there are more. These are just a few that I found. Personalized available digital tools to meet students' needs. It's not enough to just use a tool, right? We need to adapt it sometimes. Or you cannot use the same tool and the same activity with another class because, students change, the classes are different, and we need to modify, right? And for example, Google Forms. In Google Forms, we can adapt it and we can change the color. We can include images. We can include audios. We can, that is going to support our learning. It's going to help students with different learning styles or language levels. Another challenge for teachers, hopefully not in your case, right, but teachers in general, is select the right tool from an overwhelming variety. There's so much out there, and there are thousands of apps and platforms. Choosing wisely. So we need to choose wisely, right? That is key. It's very, very important. So to use Padlet or Socrative or Mentimeter for brainstorming. So sometimes, and that happens to me too, that teachers spend a lot of time deciding which tool they're going to use than actually preparing the lesson. So in my case, for example, I spend a lot of time deciding which one is going to work best in this situation, in this scenario. The same happens with my pictures. Every time I choose a picture, I spend a lot of time selecting the right picture. So, because everything communicates, right? And that's part of this, visual literacy, right? That we also talk about in the module. Another challenge is align digital tools with learning objectives. Just because a tool is fun, like Kahoot, doesn't mean it's effective. For example, well, Kahoot, right? I just said it. It's fun. But if your goal is critical thinking, then maybe it's not the right app to develop critical thinking, right? Maybe you can use something with open-ended questions or something that allows you to give deeper responses. And then we have develop digital skills to confidently use technology. Some teachers feel overwhelmed by updates, by new platforms, or troubleshooting issues, right? Maybe on Canvas or Moodle, or Aula Virtual, right? What we have here at the university. And they don't feel confident navigating, this LMS. So we need to develop this skills so we can be confident in it. If we practice, if we go deep into the website and we practice and practice, it's gonna work out. So adapting is very important, right? But not just for the sake of using technology, but teachers sometimes get lost because there's so many new tools and trends, and it is crucial to know when to use, to know why you're using it, and for what, what purpose. So it's like, have you seen those lives on TikTok where teachers teach English for 5 hours? Sometimes students are watching it, right? And they think that, oh, look, I already learned. They know technology better than us, right? So, and of course, there's an age gap, right? Because students are always or very connected, and we want to be, updated as well. So we need to educate them as well that, they need to trust reliable sources, and not everything that they found on the internet might help them, right? So that's why we as teachers, are there to kind of educate them. Now, in the program, the Specialization Program for English Language Teaching, we have this module, which is English Teaching and Learning in a Digital Era. Here's the abstract of the module. I'm not going to read everything, but while I was doing the conference, I remember one of my classes here that I was teaching, and the class was about AI. And I remember we were talking about generative AI, and well, my students thought that the Excel, this spreadsheet was AI. So we were talking about what AI is, because that's automation. And automation usually focuses on, the efficient execution of repetitive tasks. And AI is, way more. It's just, developing a system that is capable of learning, of reasoning, and making decisions based on previous responses and all that. So everything that I've covered today is included or covered in this excellent module. And the program is great because it offers a double certification, one issued by the Oficina de Rectorado, totaling over 400 hours, academic hours. And at the end, students can take an international exam, the TOEFL ITP. We've talked about international exams in previous conferences and the importance of it. So yes, and it's blended learning. So we have online sessions and then we have workshops at the Ricardo Palma University campus. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits of digital tools. You can already imagine the endless benefits of this. And well, we have here some benefits, right? The first one, maybe we can start with collaboration. It's great. Digital tools are great to collaborate because, in groups, they can create presentations, they can create podcasts. We've mentioned that, right? They can use Canva and all that. So we have collaboration, we have engagement, right? With digital tools, we can engage students and make them motivated. If we're using the right tools, right? It's time efficiency. When preparing lessons and when teaching the lesson, we can track the performance of the students, right? Either if they're using a Google document, you can see, like the updates, or, you can track the progress if they've written it. Interactivity, because, we can make learning more hands-on and dynamic. We can support multiple intelligences because there are digital tools for everything. We can personalize learning because we can, for example, if you're using WordWall, you can use your own examples and put it there. So it's very personalized. And of course, there are different types of learning. We can use, reading apps or writing apps, speaking apps, listening apps, so we can develop the 4 skills with the right tool. So these are some of the benefits that we have here. Now, I took this slide from one of my classes, and we're coming to an end of the conference. And this is kind of the basics of the module and the conferences, and in the conference, right? Which is digital competence. And here's the teacher's role, or what happens when deciding what activity or what digital tool we're going to use. So first, it is very important that we identify the learning goals and the students' needs. We need to search for the right digital tool, right? Not every digital tool is going to work for us every stage, right, of the lesson. So once you select that, you need to become knowledgeable. You need to use it a lot to kind of to feel familiar with it, right? To get acquainted with it. In the use of the digital tool, you can clearly, meticulously, and patiently teach how to use the digital tool. In case it's a new one, you can teach the students how to use it, how it works. We can track the progress, and we can adjust when needed, right? You can reteach as needed. And if it doesn't work, right, maybe use it again in a following lesson where what are some of the difficulties there, so you can work with that and make it better. And at the end, we can check the goal achievement and level of success. So this is really, really important. Now, let's talk about the conclusions here. And one conclusion that I've come to is competencies developed throughout life. This is not something that's going to happen right away. It's not going to happen today. If you decide to be digitally competent, it doesn't happen overnight. So it's a journey, right? As educators, digital competences enable us to teach, to learn, to innovate, and improve our profession. We need to be careful when using these apps, but we're always learning, and so there's room for improvement. Teaching and education must evolve hand in hand with technological development. So we know that this is an evolving world, and every day there's a new app, there's something new, right? And we need to be aware of that. But we are working hand in hand with technological developments, which I believe will enhance and maybe boost your professional development. And then the last one, teachers who embrace digital competence foster more inclusive, engaging, and future-ready classrooms. And I loved these future-ready classrooms because we have to look at the future. And there's actually one conference about that we're going to have here in this ELT Training Sessions 2025 about the future of English. So stay tuned. Now, I would like to finish with this quote that I really, really liked. And it says, technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. And that really strike a chord, because I've talked to some of my friends and some colleagues and some teachers, and some of them were scared. They thought that maybe technology or AI will replace teachers. And there are some things that I never forget. One, that teachers are better able to form connections. Students are not going to form a connection with a platform. Teachers can adapt to students' needs in real time. We adapt at the moment. Something happens and we adapt. We adjust the classes. We plan a class, but we never do exactly as we planned because some things happen right in the class. Teachers can encourage creativity and critical thinking. And teachers can show empathy, right? I remember we were studying, and I was studying with my friend, and we were using ChatGPT, and I wrote, I feel sad now. And so the ChatGPT started replying and said, why are you sad, right? I feel for you. And so I said, do you really feel for me? Because you're a computer, you're a machine. And ChatGPT said, you're right. I don't care. So of course, teachers can show empathy. That's never going to happen with, a machine. And of course, teachers can provide guidance and support, which is completely necessary. So with that, I think I'm going to finish with the conference. Thank you very much for joining. And I think we're going to see each other next time.
On May 21st, precisely.
That's right.
At this point, I would like to thank you, Simon, for all the contents. I wish we had more time to develop many of the topics you have covered today, and probably it would have been nice to have more time to take a look at the apps, right? To go over them. I would like to invite everybody to try to identify at least one thing you would like to put into practice, like in a short term, in your classes. And I would also like to remind you to please fill out the form. The registration form is still there. If you want to receive the certificate from SBS and Ricardo Palma University, together with a summary of today's session, which I'm sure is going to be very, very helpful, please register on the attendance form. Thank you one more time, Simon, for all the insights, for all the suggestions, for all the material. We want to embrace technology, but as you mentioned, in a wise way. As you mentioned also, we will meet again on the 21st of May. This will be the third session, and Miss Indira Leon will be in charge. This session will be particularly special because out of the 7 sessions that we have planned, thanks to the invitation that SBS has given to Ricardo Palma University, this will be the only face-to-face on-campus session. We will be more than happy to welcome you at our beautiful and green campus on Surco. So, see you on May 21st. Thank you very much. Thank you to SBS team. And thank you one more time, Mr. Schwarzemberg.